India may have achieved 8 to 9% growth last decade, but it lags behind even neighboring Bangladesh in many social indicators. Only 34% of Indians have access to improved sanitation against 56% in Bangladesh. Bangladesh even has a better female literacy rate, and the participation of females in the workforce is almost double that of India. Forget Bangladesh. India fares poorly even when compared to some poorest countries in sub-Saharan Africa on many social indicators. According to Nobel laureate Amartya Sen's recent book, India, An Uncertain Glory, the reason for this pathetic showing is that the intelligentsia, the media and the opinion makers equate the middle class with the Aam Aadmi and shower them with subsidies. The real poor have been left out of governmental care, in fact, even out of the political discourse. More on that from the man himself. Dr. Sen, thank you very much for joining us on CNBC TV.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, your main argument appears to be that the relatively underprivileged in India are have a self-vision that they are the Aam Aadmi, that they are the poor, and they make away with a large part of public utilities, of subsidies, of goodies. Now, since you use the word Aam Aadmi, let me start the discussion over there. There is an Aam Aadmi Party that has emerged in the last 6 to 8 months. Do you see them as representing the underdog at all?
I think in a sense they are. But let me just say, Latha, just 1 second and we may come back to it later. What you said is read out, and what you mentioned as my argument, as my main argument, it is one of my main arguments. There's also the fact that along with economic growth, we have not expanded our health and education, yes, and that the whole Asian experience, whereby growth at the GDP level as well as development in terms of expanding education, healthcare, which has been the guiding principle in Japan and Korea and Hong Kong and Singapore and Thailand and Indonesia and now China.
No, Dr. Sen, I was
all that is part of my argument. But the one which you're quoting, Latha, is exactly right. I do say that, and it's definitely one of my principal arguments. And your question about Aam Aadmi is very good. Aam Aadmi's arrival in Indian politics must be a major achievement, and I think it's done better than I thought it might. And am I happy about it? Yes, I am, because to be able to win electoral support quite massively, as in Delhi, on the basis of a program which is about equity, even though their understanding of equity may be somewhat distorted, but after all, that was what they were trying to do, and lack of corruption. To win it without appeal to communal division, to caste division, that was a major achievement. So I salute Aam Aadmi Party's electoral strategy and success. In terms of when it comes to making policy, they have to identify who the Aam Aadmi are. Aam Aadmi is a variable term. If you're looking for the poorest poor, they're not asking for cheaper electricity. They don't have electricity. 1/3 of the Indians don't. They're not asking for cheaper LPG gas. They don't have a cylinder which goes to which they can put LPG. I think, how much can you expect from a party immediately? Do I expect Aam Aadmi to learn from the experience? Yes, I do. And if so, can it become a major force in India? I think it can. Now, it has to move a fair distance in terms of their policy priorities, and I hope they will think about that. Now, I think you raised it in the context of my statement that the focus of equity policy has been that, and every time you do something for the really poor, but there's always an argument, not so much that it's not well organized, but we can't afford it. So I thought that I might begin with some numbers on that.
Please.
If you look at and this is, I'm dealing with the latest figures, if you look at the amount spent on food security is 0.85% of the GDP. And NREGA, employment program, 0.29%. Together, 1.14%. Compared with that, 1.14%, we spend minimally 2.63% on middle-class subsidies. That includes petroleum, LPG, but it also includes, a big way, diesel, fertilizers, and power, cheaper electricity. Not the third of Indians who have no power, but two-thirds of the Indians who do have power but want cheaper. So that's the minimum estimate. The maximum estimate comes to about 3.63, which will be 3 times what is spent on food and employment.
You're raising a couple of points. Let me just handle them one by one. First, the cheap electricity part, and then the food security part.
Yeah.
The cheap electricity part. Would your advice to the Aam Aadmi Party therefore be to relook and put this litmus test on everything that they support?
No, I think this
Is it for the poorest, or is it for the so-called poorest, which is really the middle class?
I think Aam Aadmi leadership has a serious issue there. Because you have to, first of all, they have to get elected to be effective. And this is one of the important questions there. And if they're going to position themselves as they are trying to do now as an all-India party, do they have to think about the Indian poor generally, not the locally poor in the city of Delhi? I don't think it's appropriate now just to damn the Aam Aadmi Party. They're at a very early stage. I think they made some mistakes. I think this statement of Kap Panchayat was a great mistake. But I think there are many issues on which I would expect the Aam Aadmi to change its position. I would like to encourage them to think again and re-examine their position and make them not just for the Aam Aadmi in a very limited definition, but Aam Aadmi in the widest definition. Given that, do I wish them well? Yes, I do.
But, Dr. Sen, with 70 years of leftism in India, and there have been at least very many sincere leaders, the left continues to support something like 12 cylinders have to be subsidized.
Yeah.
I'm sure the leftist leaders know very well that cylinders are not available except to probably, the higher middle class, not even the lowest middle class. If so many reasonably honest men in the left, and there are more honest men in the left than perhaps there are in the non-left parties, if they have not realized, you have the confidence that the Aam Aadmi Party will redefine Aam Aadmi to include the real poor and not just this middle class?
I don't have confidence, obviously. Do I have hope? Yes.
Okay.
Do I think it's impossible? No. Do I think it's very likely? I just don't know. Similarly about the left, I agree with you that there has been a dominance, the way I would put it, is the dominance of tactics over strategy. And I think that's not ultimately good for a left party. And here, as someone who would like to cheer the left, I would like them to be more strategic and more concerned with really big issues and not just tactical, because ultimately tactics don't deliver what it promises. Well thought out strategy does.
Let me come to the other issue. Food Security Act in its present stage promises 2 rupees rice and 1 rupee wheat to about 70% of the population. In a situation like this, it is natural that those who are better informed will grab it and the underprivileged get really nothing. And what is worse, those who, even the latest numbers, even from your book, indicate that about 50% of the people don't have access to the PDS. So the market price of food grains could become unaffordable if the government is such a giant procurer. So actually the Food Security Act could become draconian, couldn't it?
It could. I don't think it is. And it's not quite the case that it's not doing anything. And it's not just in the states like Tamil Nadu or Kerala. To some extent, West Bengal is doing a lot of good. Bihar too. I think if you think even if BJP runs it, like Chhattisgarh, they made a great success of the food security program. So it can be done. Is a lot of it wasted? Yes. Could we prevent it? I think we could. The question is, how do we go about doing it? And do we abandon the program on grounds that it's not working everywhere? the fact that it's doing some good somewhere is itself quite a bit.
Sir, but
bearing in mind
45% pilferage.
But,
I mean, it
well,
has fallen
I don't know,
from
45% pilferage I have seen disputed. But certainly, you know, I think we have to have some sense of proportion. Food security, as I mentioned, is taking 0.85% of the GDP. The electricity issue is taking 2%.
No,
you know, I think I'm very much welcome the critique of food security. Could have been done better. Shouldn't be only rice and only basic staple. Should have a better nutritional planning, all kinds of things. On the other hand, to say that it's fiscally irresponsible, and that, Latha, was your point too at that time. You and I disagree on that. We agree on many issues. On that, we disagree because I don't think it is the fiscal burden compared with many other things.
No, it's not.
The cylinder,
it is the most worthwhile
the
burden.
diesel, the fertilizer, and cheap electricity.
No, I mean, I completely take your point, but I must add that I have been an even bigger critic of fuel subsidy and of fertilizer subsidy. So perhaps, perhaps we are not opposed. We begin to agree.
Yes.
Okay, I have to take a break on that note. But on the issue of, the Gujarat model of development or India's preoccupation with economic growth itself, more questions on that in a minute, sir, after this break.